All right. Good morning, viewers. I'm Coach Raphael, and welcome to Governance Insights on DBM TV. Sharia law officially operates in 12 Muslim majority states in northern Nigeria, covering civil and criminal matters for Muslims. Its adoption was intended to reflect Islamic principles and bring justice according to religious prescriptions. However, the practice remains controversial nationally due to Nigeria's secular constitution and religious diversity. Our critics argue that Sharia law sometimes conflicts with constitutional rights, especially concerning non-Muslims, women's rights, and the criminal punishment. Now, having known this fact, one question remains. Is the Sharia a pathway to peace or a harbinger of conflict? This question and more will be answered by my guests. First, I have Ibrahim Umar Wasi, a well-bred and erudite Muslim. Ibrahim, you're welcome to Governance Insight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tuchukurafel. It's a pleasure to have me on this show.
All right. Second, I have Mr. Ako Christian Oche. He is the convener, Due Process Integrity Vanguard. He's also a passionate Nigerian and outspoken critic. Mr. Christian, glad to have you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And finally, we have Engineer Nelson, a seasoned software engineer. I also regard as brilliant, knowledgeable, and well-seasoned, and also experienced. Mr. Tedo, you're welcome to Governance Insight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tuchukwu. It's my pleasure being here again.
All right. Before we start, I would like us to play a very short clip of the last program that had to do with this subject or topic. Just give me a moment. Let me play the clip.
But I would say it's a fact that there is a Christian persecution going on deeply in Nigeria.
There is nothing like genocide in Nigeria based on the UN 1948 Convention.
What Ibrahim is saying is the problem we're having in Nigeria.
You should not mislead the public that this guy motive is to convert the people he's attacking to another religion. This is inaccurate.
Okay.
The aid Mr. Ahmed even posted that he cannot stand and condemn the killers of Deborah. What are we talking about?
Just imagine the fact. Just imagine it.
Put it down. Let everybody go down.
So you cannot dismiss this.
Thank you for bringing the issue of Deborah Samuel. Thank you for mentioning. Have you on any medium condemned the killing of Fatima and her 4 children in Anambra State?
When you talk about genocide in Gaza, there is a clear, explicit perpetrator, which is Israel and which is Netanyahu. It has been made very clear. So in Nigeria's case context, you keep saying genocide against Christians, genocide against Christians. Now the question is by whom? Is it by the government or by the Muslim? If you say by the Muslim, don't you think you are being stereotypical?
I believe everyone here watched, and our viewers, you watched that clip. But that has to do with, the alleged genocide against Christians in Nigeria. The debate will continue to be, hot and argumentative. Why? Because we have both sides. We have some people saying there is a Christian genocide in Nigeria, but the constant here is that Christians are being killed in Nigeria, but the rate, the numerical figure is what has been subject to debate and argument. Now let me start with Ibrahim. You are the only Muslim here. Let me start with you. We are talking about the concept of Sharia, which many people, especially in the Christian camp, have accused as the source of conflict in Nigeria, especially in the north. And so I would like to ask you, nearly 12 northern Nigerian states have implemented Sharia law since 1999. From your perspective, how has Sharia contributed to peace and social order within these Muslim communities?
All right. Thank you once again, Mr. Tuchikorafel, for this question. But I think this is a question that we're supposed to discuss it further into the topic. I would like to lay a foundation to this conversation or dialogue between the four of us. I am someone who actually believe in free speech, and I believe in people coming together to have a dialogue. I appreciate differences and I cherish differences. And in the modern world we are living, our differences is being given a negative tag. So if someone is different from you, we perceive him to become an enemy, and something we don't understand is being perceived to become wrong without even having any knowledge about it. I think it is human for someone to define himself by saying what someone is or is not. The premise of the question that Sharia is a problem because Sharia has been introduced in some northern states, I think is disingenuous, because Islam as a religion is a religion of at least 1,400 years. And there are societies today currently in the world that are practicing Sharia and doing perfectly well. I think the problem of Nigeria is not Sharia. The problem of Nigeria is basically the conflicting, should I say, tradition. Because the world generally is a battleground of influence, and everyone who controls the influence control what grows in the society. And that will make me to delve into history. Prior to the coming of these two religions to Africa, they were all alien. They were religion from the Middle East. Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, they are being called Abrahamic faith because they trace their descendancy through Abraham. And what's the location that Abraham lived? Abraham lived in a place called Mesopotamia in present-day Iraq, and he migrated from Mesopotamia to the land called the land of Canaanite, which is today being referred to as Israel and Palestine. So this was the territory that Abraham resided, and he gave birth to two children, Isaac and Jacob. Isaac happened to be the father of the Jew, and Jacob became the father of the Arabs. That's from a historical angle. So Islam came into Africa, not Africa, but it came actually to western part of Africa earlier than Christianity. It came at least 600 years, according to historians, before the advent of Christianity to the West African shore. I know you heard about Mansa Musa that led over the Timbuktu Empire of Mali, which happened to be arguably one of the first kingdom to build a structural university in the history of humanity. It is in Mali, in West Africa, and it is an Islamic kingdom that lived by Sharia. Not just that, we had Songhai Empire that was based in Ghana and was governed by Sharia. We had the Kanem-Borno Empire, and Kanem-Borno Empire lies from current-day Borno State in Nigeria to Libya in northern part of Africa, and they were governed by Sharia. Then the last phase was the Hausa City State, governed by Usman Dan Fodio, which was also governed by Sharia law. So at the point I'm trying to make is that the major problem of Nigeria, if we're going to dig down below the surface is not Sharia. Because as you rightly mentioned, the religious war began at 1992, if you're going to trace the first religious clash in Nigeria. And Nigeria was amalgamated when? 1914. Before the coming of the colonial powers, there was a structure. And I mentioned it, in southern part of Nigeria, we have the Benin Kingdom, we have the Oyo Empire, and we also have the Ibo-Ukwu. In northern part of Nigeria, we have the, so in northern part of Nigeria, we had the Hausa city-state and the Kanem-Borno Empire and the Kwara-Rafa Kingdom. These were the three kingdoms that flourished prior to the coming of the colonial powers. So, and Sharia is a law, generally for you to even say Sharia law is a tautology, because Sharia means law ordained by God. So saying God law and law again is tautology, right? In English, repeating sometimes is a tautology. So it was a law ordained by God, and it found its roots from the scripture, right? And there were societies that lived with it. And the primary example of that was Prophet Muhammad. Before we go deep into the layers of what Sharia stands for and where we drive Sharia, from which sources are we driving Sharia? I'm sorry, there's a little distraction from my end. Before we go to the roots of the sources of Sharia, I believe it is fundamentally important for us to know that the first constitution, according to some historians, was practiced during the time of the Prophet Muhammad in Medina. When he left Mecca, he was born in Mecca, and the first 10 years of Islam was a revelation of Islam. He was in Mecca. Then he migrated to Medina. When he migrated to Medina, in that city, there was a vibrant Jew culture in Medina. And the Muslims and the Jew in the time, in the headquarters of Muslims in Medina, sat down and agreed on laws binding them. And it was reported by some historians, this is the first phase of constitution in the history of humanity generally, that two different cultures come together to agree on a common term. So Islamic society as a whole was, is, and will continue to be a plural state. So it is fundamental to know that Sharia is applicable only on a Muslim, not on non-Muslims. It is wrong for everyone to carry Sharia to a non-Muslim. It is also fundamental to know that Sharia is a law that mutates. It mutates because of time. And when we start talking about the sources of Sharia, you will know how it mutates. It goes with the changing reality of society. So I think this should be the background of our conversation. And I would like to say something based on personal principle. I'm a Muslim, and we're being perceived wrongly. A Muslim likes to be asked about his religion, not to be told about his religion. And it is so important, and because we value tolerance and mutual respect. When you ask me because you are in a position that wants to learn, it is better for me to explain than telling me about the faith you don't or you have little knowledge about. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that opening statement, Mr. Ibrahim. Now, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Christian Oche. You know, they say that perception has a lot of influence in society. If you are in government, you are doing well, you believe you are doing well, but the people do not feel you are doing well, that you are in trouble. Am I correct? So the public perception, the general perception is that Islam and the Sharia are a threat to peace. in any society, especially civilized society like Nigeria. Now, I'm asking you now, Ibrahim said that the Sharia is not a problem. The Sharia is just like the Bible. But let me ask you, do you believe that the Sharia is any way a threat to peace or a threat to unity in Nigeria?
Yes, good morning once again, viewers out there. When you want to find out whether Sharia is a problem or is a blessing to Nigeria, find out the states.
Christian, are you still there? All right.
I think it's having some
the problem
technical
problems. Okay,
Can
Mr.
you hear
Terry.
me?
Okay.
I think
Continue.
he's back.
Okay.
Continue.
So, starting from Zamfara, the states in Nigeria where Sharia was implemented, you know, Sharia is an Islamic law, right? Nigeria as a country is not an Islamic country. Why implement Sharia? You cannot have two laws in one society. It will never work. There will constantly be conflict. That's the reality of the matter. Conflict of opinion, conflict of belief, conflict of interest, all this will continue to cause trouble to the society. If you look at the terrain, the northern terrain, where the Sharia have been implemented, are there only Christians, or I mean, is it only implemented on only Muslims? The answer is no. Mr. Ibrahim in the studio could testify where Deborah was burnt alive, right? Because she was alleged to have spoken or said something that hurts the prophet. In the general context, humans are not meant to fight for God. You need to fight for God, God himself, to do justice for himself. Humans should only fight for themselves, not fighting for the Almighty. He is an Almighty for a reason. So I don't know if I'm to dabble into the general context of my presentation, or I should just limit my my response to your question of whether Sharia is a problem or otherwise.
Yes, I think you are making a lot of sense. Mr. Brian, if you can also reason with me, because if you say that Sharia is created only for Muslims, now in the Muslim community, when the prophet is, blasphemed, there is a given punishment for anyone who blasphemes the prophet, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, let me respond to that.
If that is the case, a Christian, Deborah, blasphemed or allegedly blasphemed the prophet and was killed by members of the Islamic community. Don't you think they took laws into their hands and by that case violated that principle that the Sharia was meant for Muslims alike?
All right. I think you even answered the question within your own question. Did they carry law into their hands? Yes. Is carrying law acceptable within the scope of Sharia? No, absolutely not. It is not in the position of anybody to carry any law on his own hands. You have to be tried in a Sharia court, and the court has to pass a judgment. If you are convicted, there are processes, just like any other secular court, before the sentence will be carried out. Is it justifiable when someone, for example, steals something in the market and they catch him and burn him, and you come and say the Constitution of Nigeria gives freedom for Nigerians to burn everyone who steals? No. Even if there is such law, it is not in the position of the citizen to carry it out. But more often than not, people used to trespass laws and guidelines. And that's why we have the guidelines in the first place. And regards to whether there is a stipulated law within the Sharia that stated that if someone blasphemes, he should be put to death, it is something that when we delve into it is a topic on its own, because the sources of Sharia, I would like to talk about the sources of Sharia because it's so important. There are 4 components that made up Sharia. Number 1 is the Quran, that's the sacred book revealed according to our own tradition, our belief as Muslim, revealed from God to Muhammad. Then the second thing is the Sunnah, that's the life of the Prophet, how he lived in this world. Because according to Islamic tradition, the best way to translate the Quran is looking at the Prophet, his life. For example, when you just pick a verse in the Quran and said, Quran promote hostility against non-Muslims, then I trace and look at the life of the Prophet when he had all power to eliminate all non-religious people, but he sat with them and they coexisted. Then I would say you are getting it wrong, even if you are a Muslim, right? So the best way to translate the Quran is looking at the life of the Prophet. That's second, the Sunnah, the life of the Prophet. Then the third is called the Ijma. Ijma. And the Ijma is, should I say, the consensus of scholars, because Islam has branches and sects and creeds within it. So the consensus of these scholars together is what we call Ijma. Then we have what we call Qiyas. Qiyas is, the world evolves and change is the only thing that is constant. So when things that are happening today that was not happening during the time of the Prophet, the scholars will come and do qiyas. What is the stand of the Muslim Ummah on this problem? So that's qiyas. This is the 4 sources. And we have earlier on 4 schools of Islamic jurisprudence. That's the school of thought of jurisprudence. We have the Maliki, the Hanafi, Abu Hanbali, and Shafi'i. These are the 4 schools of Islamic jurisprudence. They have their own different approaches to Sharia because they are Islamic jurists. That's why you see that, for example, Afghanistan and Iran are practicing Sharia, and people look at their own Sharia and say it is different from the Sharia practiced by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Indonesia, Oman, and all these countries that are flourishing, right? So because there are different interpretations based on the juries you agree with, but fundamentally it is law driven from these 4 sources. So what the people did to Deborah Samuel was completely wrong. I stand by it, not because I don't believe that within the Islamic Sharia, there is a provision that if someone blasphemes, he should put to death. It is the same in the Bible. Blasphemy is punishable by death penalty. Across all religion, it is agreed. But do I believe that everyone who carries blasphemy should be put to death? It is a matter of the society we are living in. And I said it categorically clear that Sharia is a law that mutates, that change because of the society, the circumstance, the time, and the condition. So it might be right in some certain societies. It might be completely wrong in others. And fundamentally, why I condemn the killing of Deborah Samuel was the fact that I don't believe people should carry law into their own hand. Even if she blasphemed, it is the best way to handle it is to take her to the court of law if there is any. But in the scope of Sharia, a non-Muslim will not even be tried in a Sharia law. That's the basic of Sharia. And the visual manifestation of it was before England and France ultimately become the superpower of the world. there was a superpower of the world, and the superpower of the world is named the Ottoman Empire, governed by Sharia. And you know what? The Ottoman Empire, 70% of its population was Christian. The 70% of Ottoman Empire, there was no forced conversion in the Ottoman Empire. Actually, I will say the only difference between the laws of Islam and the secular law, because today we are not talking about Sharia law and Christian law or Jewish law, because there exists no law apart from the Sharia law and the secular law, right? The only difference between the secular law and the Sharia law is the fact that Sharia law is pragmatic. It is not about being palatable. It's about being honest and consistent with nature. It's not about doing away with our differences. It's about accepting our differences and coexisting with each other, regardless of our differences. So, for example, the example is that during the Ottoman Empire, there were Christians, but they are not being governed by the Islamic law. The Muslims are being governed by the Islamic law. They were governed by the laws, the Sharia in the Bible, because believe it or not, Arab Christians and Arab Jew has Sharia in their own Bible, and they call every law Sharia in their own Bible, because the literal meaning of Sharia is a law ordained by God, and we have the 10th commandment in the Bible. So they believe in the laws or the 10th commandment of the Bible, and they were being tried by these laws, not by Islamic law, under Islamic rule. So anybody that tried to say today, I want to impose Sharia on everyone in the world, he is an extremist. That's why I say Islamophobes and extremists have the same translation of the Quran. They have the same translation of Islam, and maybe you should lock them up in another world, not mine, because this is not my religion. They are not representing my religion. It is the extremists across faith and flavors that believe that two civilizations cannot come together and coexist. They virtually believe that these differences has to be exploited, and it will lapse into hostility and antagonism. So, but the real Islam is that we can coexist without doing away with our differences, but accepting our differences. And that's the principal concept of a rainbow country. When you see a rainbow, you see different colors, but they are together. So I will come with my own differences, you come with your own differences, but we will be able to coexist and respect each other based on the principle of mutual respect, because we understand that acceptance is not approval.
Right, thank you. I believe that the Muslim community is on the defensive side, and we always be. But I would like to ask Mr. Tedo, do you believe, and why, that those who, Muslims who attack Christians, do it in violation of the Sharia, or do it in tandem with the core tenets of the Sharia?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tochukwu, for the opportunity to speak. I don't know if you can hear me clearly.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I'll start on this note. While listening to Mr. Ibrahim speak, he was just corroborating my personal thoughts over the years. You know, I've always had to ask one question, that the Islam practiced in other parts of the world, is it different from the one practiced in Nigeria? The Quran that the other countries of the world that developed, like Ibrahim rightly was mentioning, Indonesia, Qatar, UAE, and what have you, right? Is the Quran they read and practice different from the one that the Muslim in Nigeria, specifically from the northern part of Nigeria, practice? And if you look at it, the answer is no. It's not, it's the same. The only difference is interpretation. All right, it's just like the Bible. The Bible read in Nigeria is not different from the Bible read in any part of the world. The only difference is interpretation and application. All right, and if you look at what happens in Nigeria, essentially, a bulk of Nigerians who are who subscribe to the Muslim faith are Northerners. And one of the things that you find in the North, I'm from Benue, I'm from North Central, so what I'm saying is the truth, and Ibrahim can also agree to the fact, is that there is widespread ignorance sold to the masses by the elite. And I love to say this thing, just as outspoken as Ibrahim is, right? He practices a religion and he painstakingly went to understand the core principles of the religion. All right, that's why he's very free and also very pragmatic in his approach to being a Muslim. All right, but it is not applicable to more than 90%, permit me to say that, of the persons who practice Islam in Nigeria. All right, because they believe in the extreme practices of their religion. So when we're talking about Sharia, Sharia is not the problem. The problem is the people that practice Sharia that we should be looking at. If you look at Saudi Arabia, for an example, don't they practice Sharia? Right? If you go to Indonesia, if you go to Qatar, don't they practice Sharia? Do they have the kind of issues we have in Nigeria? No. You know, one of the things I always love to tell people is, before you subscribe to religion, not just Islam, even Christianity or whatever religion it is, I'm a believer, right? I'm a Christian, I'm a card-carrying Christian. And one of the things I always tell people when they are referring to somebody's misbehavior for being Christian is that you don't understand what you're talking about, all right? Because if you do, you judge someone for himself, not the belief he subscribes to. So just like we have radicalists in Islam, we have extremists as well in the Christian faith, which that may be a conversation for another day. All right. So if you would ask me, is Sharia bad? No. And yes, depending on the context. All right. The challenge we have, like I earlier said in Nigeria, is we have people who are not educated. You know, when a man doesn't have a mind of his own, he's easily manipulated. And that is what you find widespread in the North. All right. If you meet a Northerner, just like our friend Ibrahim here, who is educated, you wouldn't tell Ibrahim to carry a bomb and rub on himself and go and blow up a car park for religious purposes. He wouldn't agree to that. I have Yoruba friends who are Muslim. All right. And those are some of the sweetest souls you can possibly meet in your life. I went to school in Benue. All right. Most of my friends were from the North. That was when I had to, I got to understand exactly what Islam was. One of my closest friends in school was Aisha, who later got married to a Christian. All right. There were days I doubted if Aisha was a Muslim or not, but she was exposed. Do you understand? So I think the question essentially is not about whether Sharia being bad or being good. It's about how it is being practiced and on who that is applied. All right. So I think that's my submission. Thank you.
Yes, you have made a very valid point that it is the elite who are imposing or inculcating these extremist ideas of the Sharia into the Muslim community. Ibrahim, you want to speak?
Yes, definitely. I agree with him 100% that there is illiteracy in northern part of Nigeria, specifically, like the index speak volume, and I don't argue with that. Nigeria generally is a country that is suffering from that illiteracy, but the one in northern part of Nigeria is actually higher. But what I want to even highlight is the fact that when there is a political agenda at play, differences or division is the tool used by those in power to divide the people. You know, England was the country that invented the idea of divide and conquer. And it is easier for me to say and point to another person and say, this is your problem. And it will distract you from focusing from the reality of things that are bringing the society down and focus on that thing that is not even your problem. So when there is political agenda at play, these politicians will keep using these tools that are of lesser importance to us and to our livelihood to keep on dividing the people. And I said it before, and I don't use that word lightly. The politicians enjoy the division in the country. I'm a politician, I'm a practicing politician. Currently, you know my position in the obedient movement. I know that when we enter a room and close door, the strategy of politics is not about any emotion. It's basically about how we win election. And if it means minding the pain of people towards supporting us, because we want people to bet blood for us. So how can we make them support us? Even blindly, we have to mind their pain. Sometimes we come and divide them by bringing some real issues that are happening on ground. I want you even to challenge me some of the most controversial part of the Sharia. Even if you don't know, I'm ready to bring them on board and talk about them. And I believe I am, when I come to this, when Mr. Ako Christian Oche brought the idea of talking about Sharia, I'm open to talk about everything. And I believe in dialogue. I believe that the only way for you to understand me and to treat me better is for you to understand the difference. If we assume and we, should I say, pretend that we are the same, there is no difference, then we open room for all sorts of crisis and violence, because these people are going to exploit the difference and show us the difference. But once we understand the difference, it will be easier for you to come and tell the person that this is not our problem. You are clearly our problem that is trying to weaponize our identity to your own interests, right? When we talk about corruption in Nigeria, when we talk about killing of people across the board in the north, the south, and any part of the country are suffering from the same circumstance of deprivation and manipulation. It has no religion, it has no creed. But when they come, they will tell the Muslims that the Christians are your problem. They will tell the Christians that the Muslims are your problem. And they will try to find some justification to their own evil act. And that drives me to the scripture themselves. You know, it is ironic that Islam is the only religion that make it a pillars of faith. Only non-Christian belief that make it a pillars of faith to believe in Jesus Christ. Apart from Islam, there's no other religion in the world that recognize Jesus Christ, apart from Christianity. When you talk about any non-Christian belief, apart from Islam, there's no other religion that recognize, cherish, respect Jesus Christ. And there is one of the Islamic scholars during the medieval era. He recognized, we actually as Muslims recognize 4 layers of brotherhood. And the first layer of brotherhood is called the children of Adam. We recognize us as humans, we are all brothers in humanity. Then it's narrowed down to Abrahamiya, which is Abrahamic, which in it comprises of Christianity and Judaism, who traces their descendancy to Abraham. Because in the Quran, when you talk about unbelievers and infidels, Quran never called Christians and Jews unbelievers or infidels. It calls them repeatedly people of the book. And among the pillars of faith of Islam is believing in the gospel of Jesus, believing in the laws of Moses, believing in Psalmist David, which we'll call it in Arabic, Injil, that's the gospel of Jesus, Torah, the law of Moses, and Zabur, the Psalmist David. So we believe in them. And I will take a Bible, when you're talking about Christianity as a Christian, or a Jew is talking about Judaism as a Jew, I will relate with him, because some of the stories are the same in the Quran, and I can easily go along with it. So that wholeness and clarity in Islam, I think, is one of the things that make me to love Islam the most. And by the way, we're talking about division of the people. And I tried to talk about the scriptures the other time. Do you know that if you take the Quran, the Bible, and the Bible, the two Bibles, the Hebrew Bible is the Torah, law of Moses, and the Psalmist David. And the Injil is the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? If you take these two plus the Quran, these are the three books in the Abrahamic faith, and measure the number of verses that relate to violence, I think you will see that the Hebrew Bible, that's the Old Testament, has 5.8% statistically verses that are violent. 5.8% of it. That means 94.2% are not violent. Then when you take the Injil, that's the New Testament, it has 2.8% of it versus violence, which means 97.2% are not violent. Then when you take the Quran, 2.3% of its verses are violent, which means 98.7% of it are not violent. And according to these statistics, the Quran has least number of violent verses. It wins. You can check, fact check me. We are living in an information age. So if someone is saying I'm using the Quran and carrying violent and aggressive acts against non-religious, non-Muslims and others, I have to ask him, which Quran are you adhering to? Because let us not judge religion by the acts of someone in the religion, right? Because statistically, even if we're going to judge like that, if we're all going to be that narrow and myopic and judge every religion by the acts of someone in that religion, it is statistical that it is not the Muslims that kill the highest number of people in the world. It is not the Muslims that started the First World War that led to the death of over 100 million people. It was Europe, and predominantly Christian. It was not the Muslim that started the Second World War that led to the death of 60 million people and the extermination of 6 million Jews. It was Europe, predominantly Christian. It was not the Muslim who dropped atomic bomb in Japan. It was United States of America, a country that is predominantly Christian. It is not the Muslim countries that enslaved over 180 million Africans. It was Europe, predominantly Christian. It was not the Muslim who started the crusade that led to the death of not just Muslim, Jew, but also other Christians that don't believe in Catholicism, because the crusade was carried out by the Catholic Europe against first Muslims that were earlier on the inhabitants of the Iberian Peninsula, the country called Spain and Portugal today were predominantly Muslims at the time. They kicked them out and killed vast majority of them and killed Jews. 200,000 Jews were killed at the time, and they invaded Jerusalem at the time, and also kill vast majority of Protestant Christians that are not Catholic and forcibly converted them to Catholicism. It was not the Muslims. So, and the statistics of this terrorist organization, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and any other terrorist organization that you like to call, form 0.01% of the Muslim population globally. Why are you judging the Muslims based on the act of a significant few? And it is, you will not understand how unjust it is when it is only Muslim. It is only.
I think this conversation is being structured. Is being dominated by Mr. Ibrahim for over 30 minutes now. I don't know how we want to run a conversation.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a topic. We are talking about Nigeria, not about globally.
Yes.
Is Sharia a problem or a solution to Nigeria? That is what we should focus on.
Well, thank you for your observation. You know, Ibrahim is so passionate about it.
Thank you very much. I will try and stick to that. But I'm just trying to refer to something, because the other time I gave an example with Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Qatar, the countries that we all agree that they are doing well. and they are practicing Sharia. That's why now I try to reflect on the larger context. Because now when we talk about terrorism, someone will ask you, why is it that 90% of terrorist organizations are doing it in the name of Islam, right? And I think it is an obligation for me to answer this question. And the answer to this question is that, yes, terrorism has been over time politicized. So it's very, very hard for you to even know who a terrorist is and who is not a terrorist. For example, the most controversial Muslim countries, there are 57.
My contribution has not been noted in this conversation so far.
Ibrahim, please just round up your talk, please.
All right, so let me focus on that. Let me focus on that strictly Nigeria. Do I believe that Sharia law is superior to the secular law we are practicing today in Nigeria? Absolutely yes. Do I believe that Sharia law should be imposed in Nigeria? Absolutely no. I believe that imposing Sharia or bringing Sharia to Nigeria as a secular state, not just a secular state, but a plural state, is a contradiction, because laws are being accepted through concession. If you agree that this is the law that I want to live by, and what I agree on as a Muslim might not be the thing that a Christian agreed on, and he has the right to choose his own path. So I don't believe that Sharia law should be practiced in Nigeria. I'm one of the Muslims that even believe that a country like Nigeria should be practicing democracy, not theocracy. I don't believe in theocracy. Countries that are practicing theocracy have failed, and I don't believe in theocracy. I believe in democracy. But there are some. Why do I believe that Sharia is good for the Nigerian system, or it will fix the Nigerian system? Why do I believe that it's superior to the current system we're living in? Is if you look at the Islamic law, you talk about cutting the hand of someone who steals, who 100K.
Ibrahim, I think you have made a point. Mr. Christian, please.
Lose.
Mr. Okay. Ibrahim, what
can you hear me?
I think you have made a point. Okay.
Mr. Christian, you've been making this point for quite a long time, and the idea is that we should be able to stand in a ground and say, okay, XYZ is this, XYZ is this. From the ground that I stand, this is what I see, right? That is what the conversation should be. From my own point of view, right? Accepted, I'm a Christian by birth, and you know what my stand is when it comes to religion. I don't give a damn. I speak to it based on the humanistic point of view. Sharia law refers to what? Islamic religious law from the Quran and the Hadith, right? That is the origin, where it came from. It has been practiced in northern Nigeria before colonial era. Is on record. By what? Sokoto Caliphate, ably led by Usman Danfodio during the 1804 year when he was in charge of the caliphate. When the British colonized Nigeria, they realized that there was an existing traditional system. They don't want to tamper with it, rather they maintain it. But then they limited it out of criminal law. It should not be part of the criminal law, such that they'll be able to rule the people indirectly. After independence in 1960, right, tension grew up when the issue of Sharia came on board to be part of Nigerian constitution. There was this tension, and the ground was that Nigeria is a secular state. There is no room for Sharia. That remained the status quo for independence constitution. Now, going to what? The historical development, how crises have evolved over the years in Nigeria since the origin of Sharia, that is conflict are directly or indirectly affiliated to Sharia law. In the year 1804, Sokoto Jihad established Sharia Caliphate. in northern part of Nigeria. Foundation was on Islamic law, right? In 1950s, northern politicians debate Sharia law in the federation, that is in the north. Early divisions, that is politically, people started dividing, agreeing, disagreeing. Why should there be Sharia in the first instance? In 1979,
We can't hear you again, Christian. Are you muted or what?
Your voice, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Mr. Christian.
can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
hear you.
I don't know what's happening to the voice today. It's still the same voice. So, like I was saying earlier, there were riots that broke out as a result of the mere word Sharia. The moment it's mentioned in Nigeria, it leads to crisis. Crisis of what? Opinion. Sharia as a law is not a secular law. There are tenets in the Sharia, okay, even in the Bible, where Mr. Ibrahim mentioned that there were aspects that promote violence and all that. Yes, but that's in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, is a record of all that transpired before the birth of Jesus Christ. You understand?
Mr. Due Process, I think let me correct that.
Ibrahim, please wait, Ibrahim.
I never interrupted
You have been talking.
So allow me
No,
to
it's not
land.
interruption, it's just correction. It is also in the New Testament. That's what I want to try to say, because I gave the statistics categorically clear. 5.8 Old Testament, 2.8 New Testament, 2.3.
It's all right, Ibrahim. Wait.
There is no part in the New Testament that encourage anybody to stone someone to death for adultery. It's even on record when the woman who was accused of adultery was brought before Jesus Christ in the crowd. They are trying to test whether what he will say will conflict with the Jewish law or otherwise. And he said what? The one who have not committed any sin should be the first to cast the first stone. And that was how they all walked away. So what does that portray? It's against violence. The New Testament does not in any way promote any violence. You understand? As a matter of fact, Jesus Christ said, and I quote, if someone slap you, you turn the next cheek. So this aspect of trying to enforce a religious law on Nigerians is absolutely the reason why we are in this mess. In the year 2001, Kano protests over Sharia, right? Protests against perceived federal interference in Sharia. Dozens killed. Till date, nobody has been arrested for this murderous act. Between the year 2002 to 2004, Amina Lawal case and international reactions. Katsina, that is in Katsina State, the woman was sentenced to death by stoning, right, for adultery under Sharia law. Nigeria as a country is a secular state. Why should a Nigerian be stoned to death because of the implementation of what? Sharia. Sentence overturned after global pressure, just like we are currently ongoing in the Supreme Court. The sentence was overturned that she should not be stoned to death because of international pressure. And this highlighted human rights tension. In the year 2009 till present, Boko Haram insurgency, Boko Haram in Yobe, Adamawa, and the vast part of the Northeast have thrived until this moment. The northeastern part of Nigeria has been under the gross attack of Boko Haram. And what's the belief of Boko Haram? That Western education is bad. Western education is forbidden. That all that should be studied is the Quran. Right? The implementation of knowledge in a country like Nigeria should all be focused on anything that is against Western education, which is rooted in the Quran. So there is no how, whether we agree or otherwise, we can have any iota of peace in Nigeria if we allow Sharia. Because Sharia is archaic to the modern world. If you look at the historical crisis in Kaduna, in Plateau, these are states, when it comes to religious tension, they are the most hit, the grossly affected states in Nigeria. These two states, Kaduna, Plateau, these states suffered huge crisis. Why? Is it because of tribe? The answer is no. Because of Sharia law introduction, because of religion. People feel my neighbor is my next aunt because of what he or she believes in. And that is why, in my own personal view, when I look at the general context of religion, I feel religion has come to cause problem in Africa. If God in heaven, if I have opportunity to rule this country or to serve in any position of power that can give me the authority, I will remove the word religion from national identity. It should not be there because we don't need it. It has caused a lot of bloodshed. Religion ordinarily should serve as what? Peace building. Religion should center on love. Religion should center on accepting everybody as one. But in a situation whereby religion becomes an object of division, an object of hate, it becomes a problem. There is nothing that is permanent in life. Whatever it is that you are doing, and you sit down to look at it, why is this thing always causing problem? You can do without it. We were not born with religion. Man was born blank. Yes, tabula rasa. We were born blank. Nobody was born with Christianity or with Islam or with Judaism or with traditional religion. Nobody was born with it. All these concepts, all this ideology were born out of this world that we are living in. The word imprints on you and tell you this is your father. The word imprints on you and tell you this is your mother. The word imprints on you and tell you this is your religious brother. I can't understand the reason why in Nigeria we claim he has a brother in Niger. What is the relationship, you know? And the Nigerians, particularly in the northern part of Nigeria, there are more affiliation to people based on religion. So this religious ideology, instead of helping to bond people as one, have been the basis of crisis in Nigeria. Believe you me, I kid you not, we have not witnessed the best of bloodshed yet. It's on its way. Because when you look at the younger kids, the way they look and cherish the terrorists, the way they admonish them, the way they look at them with enthusiasm, you know that the worst is yet to come. Until we look at this head on and solve it, religion has never helped anybody in Nigeria to achieve any meaningful peace. If you look at the spectrum of states that are affected by this religion, the Islamic Sharia law that are being implemented, I was mentioning earlier, Zamfara. Zamfara today is not enjoying peace. Why? Because the people have been indoctrinated. The people have been told that the only way they can get to heaven is by killing somebody, right? That is indoctrination. It may not necessarily be the basics of the Islam, but it is affiliated to it. So we should find a way to settle this whole thing. If we don't settle that Nigeria is a secular state, one, I'm talking about solution now. We should focus on the fact that Nigeria is a secular state and all forms of religious law should be dropped aside and criminalize anyone who violates and went ahead to implement any religious law on any group of Nigerians should be criminalized, put to jail, or sentenced for life, we are not going to achieve any meaningful development, because there is no meaningful development that will come to a society where there is crisis. Zamfara today is living on wealth, but languishing in poverty. They have all the earth minerals to be okay. But then, religion has been used as a weapon to affect the ability. Okay, talking about Sharia, there is a segment that talks about whoever steals his hand should be amputated, right? How many Nigerian politicians have been amputated? If it works, how many Nigerian politicians today, particularly in the north, are you saying they are all saints? At least there they accept that there should be Sharia. In Zamfara, for instance, the former governor recently, they were able to, recover vehicles belonging to government for him forcefully. Why did he took it? Was it private property? The answer is no. Was his hand amputated? The answer is no. So what are we talking about? Sharia law, in my own understanding, is that Sharia has been used by the Nigerian political elites to suppress the masses. Sharia is designed to continue to enslave the Nigerian masses, particularly in northern Nigeria. And now they want to have it extended to southwest. You see what is happening in Kwara State, right? So these are all approaches. There are times in this country where there was a debate to open a Sharia court in southwest. And you could see how the young people resisted. So if you want the entire Nigeria to even practice Sharia, we'll look at the results from states that are practicing it. How has it helped them? So I'll leave my debate on this premise that Sharia has not helped Nigeria to achieve peace, and it should be stepped aside.
The Sharia and the Nigerian law, constitution cannot coexist. Ibrahim, I know you want to respond to what he has said.
Yeah, I made mention of something earlier on when we started the dialogue, that as Muslim and personally, based on personal principle, I respect and love when someone asks me about my faith than when he told me about my faith.
Most but Mr. Brian, you were quoting Bible here now.
No,
did you ask?
Let me learn.
Did you ask? No. Did you ask?
Let me learn.
That's how Bible promotes violence.
Did you learn? I'm going to dispute all of the things you said because they are not factual. And actually, thank God we are not only four that are going to watch the program. And I will ask Ultra Say to Mr. Tochukurafel to fact check and tell you that you are wrong before the end of the program. I made one claim. Listen, I made a claim.
Let us finish this one first. Did you explain the Bible here or otherwise? Did you ask?
I did not explain the Bible.
Or did you ask us to explain the Bible to you?
Explain the Bible. I did not even try to explain the Bible. I made the reference. There's difference between making references and explaining. I did not try to explain.
About it. So why should you reference? Do you reference what you don't know?
No, giving a reference is a data. When I said there is a chapter in the Bible, for example, there is John in the Bible, it is not explaining the Bible. It's just saying a fact. It's stating a fact.
You're already talking about it.
I want you to state,
continue.
I want you to highlight the thing you think you said that is wrong, and then dispute them.
Yeah. Number one, I made a claim that the verses in these three holy books, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran, I said the Old Testament has 5.8% of its verses to be violent. And I said the New Testament has 2.8% of its verses to be violent. And I said Quran has 2.3%, which is the lowest, right? So this is a reference that I made.
Please give me the verse.
I want you to fact check.
Give me the verse in the New Testament that promote violence. Give me that verse.
I give him I want to respond to a lot of things that you said. Now I leave it to him.
Let us start from that. Let us start from that. Mention one verse in the New Testament.
No,
you know, I don't give
no,
a
there
damn
are a
about.
lot of verses. There are a lot of verses. Now you
I
make a
stand
very
for
huge
what-
claim. Listen. We must have to come to a term that if you don't know, I don't know, then we have a source to our data. And the source that I talk about is a neutral source. It's neither Muslim nor Christian. And I gave an example about that. Maybe now if I quote any verse in the Bible, you claim that I am trying to explain the Bible. So I'm not interested in explaining anything. I just gave
No, you cannot make
about something that you can go on Google yourself and check. If it is false, you can see. If it is true, you can see.
Okay.
So that's it. And that's what's faulty with your argument completely.
Hello,
Okay, sorry.
gentlemen.
Mr. Ibrahim, can you calm down?
Yeah.
You know, just like what you said earlier, that as a Muslim, you don't like being told about your religion. You like being asked about your religion. All right. I was personally just waiting to come up to speak, and I'll ask you questions around what is it Mr. Christian also that is trying to raise. All right. You see, one thing is just like you said, I'm not a Muslim. Have I read the Quran? Yes, but not in depth. All right. So I really can't come up and make certain assertions about the Quran because the little parts of the Quran I've read, I don't have information enough to talk about this is the content of the Quran or this is what it talks about. I may have seen some verses here and there, probably in the course of my own Christian training. Do you understand? That doesn't give me sound knowledge enough to come and say, this is what the Quran is about, all right? I'm a Christian. I've read the Bible back and forth, all right? So, you know, when you were saying there were portions, 2% of the New Testament that is violent, I was like, really? Because probably whoever gave you that data or statistics probably did not read the Bible himself or didn't understand the context of the conversations. You know, one of the things I always love to tell people when reading religious texts is that there are a lot of figures of speech in the language called English. All right, almost every language has figures of speech or has what is it called? Literally devices in that language. All right, and then when you're trying to read a piece of literature and you don't understand the context in which something is being placed and then you misinterpret it, which is one of the major challenges we have in the African context. Because permit me to say this thing, an average Nigerian or an average African doesn't understand English. We only claim to, all right? But if you actually give, that's the reason why in English language in secondary school, we had something like comprehension passages. It was later when I became an adult, I understood why there was something like comprehension passages in English, because you can read something and not understand what that is saying, and you want to, because of your prejudices and your preconceived notions, you say this is what this thing is saying, which in most of the instances is not. That's why people wonder why comprehensive passages, people still fail it, because you read and you don't understand what that thing is saying, and you interpret it wrongly. All right. So I want to say categorically, I don't know where your source of data is, or saying there are about 2% violent verses, or any part of the New Testament that connotes violence or preaches violence. All right, I don't know if that was what whoever gave that particular details.
Not preaches violence.
But I would love to see.
Not preaches violence.
Okay, you said not preaching violence.
No, I don't mean preaching violence or encouraging or motivating people to do violence, but verses that are violent. When you read them, they are militaristic. And by the way, I'm not trying to say I know the Bible. Although I'm a student of comparative religion, I can quote the verses of the Bible. What he challenged me, I can do it. I am open to do it, these challenges. But that's not the point. The point is, for example, now you talk about Saudi Arabia. How many of us travel to Saudi Arabia? The answer is none. We talk about Afghanistan. How many of us travel to Afghanistan? None. I talk about United States of America. How many of us travel to United States of America? None. but we have a source of data from the internet because we are living in an information age that we can see things. So the fact that, assuming for the sake of this dialogue, I don't know anything about the Bible, there are sources that I can go and see the overall of the Bible and talk about it. I'm not translating the Bible, I'm giving facts. I don't know whether you were here when I cited an example.
Sorry, permit me to say this thing, Ibrahim, right? I'm someone who, whenever I'm talking about religion, specifically in the African context, I know there are high emotions involved. All right.
Yeah.
And while I'm a Christian, I'm saying this thing publicly, like it's not something I hide about. Do I encourage people to believe in Jesus? Yes.
Your voice is
Do I
down.
force people? Okay, can you hear me clearly now?
You're back. We can hear you now.
Okay, all right. Do I wish and encourage people to become believers in Jesus? Yes, that is what it means to be Christian. Do I force people or compel them to do that? No. Do you know why? Even God himself, who is God, has never forced anybody in modern context to say, if you don't follow me, I will kill you. Or if you don't do this thing will happen to you. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So I'm very careful when having conversations around religion, especially in the African context, because there's a way we Africans take the things of God that I wonder if God himself takes his matters the way we take it. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So whenever we're talking about quoting something from scripture or referring to maybe any religion's holy book, without being able to, like, personally, like, I'm saying this thing because we live in an era where there's a lot of bias out there. All right. Let's say I'm a Christian today and I say I have hatred for the Muslim community, for instance, and I have a blog, right? And I'm going to post data. Do you really think I'm going to post something that would be positive to the Muslim community? The answer is a blatant no. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. And then let's say I'm a programmer, for instance, and you told me in the last conversation we had, you said publicly that you're a computer scientist. You know, I can have the knowledge to optimize my platform to a point that whenever anyone searches anything related to the Muslim community in Nigeria, my blog will be the one that will serve that information. Does that necessarily mean that to be correct? No, because I was biased in my assertions. I was biased in my conclusions because I didn't know what I was saying. But because I want to push a particular narrative out there.
I think I agree with you on that. With that being said, since you are a software engineer, programmer, you understand the sources we get our information. And as a computer scientist,
yes,
you know I am equipped. I know a source that is fake, and I know the source that carry weight. For example, when we're talking about United Nations, and I go on United Nations website and I get an information, and you say it is biased, I don't know what he wants me to believe in. So we must also accept that it is not everything that is posted on the social the media space that is wrong.
In our last conversation that we had, right? I think that was on Independence Day. I wanted to say this thing. You know, when you talk about United Nations, what form United Nations?
You said?
Who the United Nations as a body, who are the constituents, like the members of UN? There are people like myself and you. They come from different nations.
I'm just citing an example. I did not see this data on United Nations. I'm just citing an example. It's just an example.
I understand what you're saying. For example,
if they want to get an information about you, and they come and get the information about you, and someone come and say this is biased, does it make sense?
It doesn't. It depends on the source. All right, it depends on the source of that information.
So we must have to get a unifying factor as humans that we will accept something from that place. Thank God I'm a computer scientist. The idea of sources that are wrong, I know them. I know them very, very well. And I will not go on sources that are not are producing all these kind of fake propaganda.
Talking about the UN. The UN that we had before is not the same UN that we have now.
No, don't even talk about the UN. Is completely out of the conversation. I cited an example about UN. It's not even part of the conversation.
What is happening in Nigeria? Rather, all attention is on Gaza. They don't give a damn. It's 10,000 die in Nigeria. Is that UN? That's not UN, no. Look at the situation in Sudan, even if they forget about Nigeria. Look at the situation in Sudan. Do they care? They are all focused on Gaza. So the UN that we have now is about propaganda UN.
The truth of the matter is, if you want to really look at, that's why personally, as a person, right, I'm not trying to sell this as an ideology to anybody listening to us today. I honestly don't take the Nigerian state seriously. I mean, I listened to our vice president's speech at the UN General Assembly and I was laughing. I was like, how hypocritical is that guy? I mean, people will be killed in Nigeria. These guys don't care. I mean, they don't. Tinubu went to Benue for the courtesy visit for regarding the Yawata massacre. That guy didn't go to. He was in the government house. Do you understand? But our VP had the effrontery to go and advocate for Gaza. Yeah, I could relate to him because he's a Muslim, and probably he is supporting them because they are people of his faith. But how about go to Zamfara, look to Borno. The people who Boko Haram is killing are largely people of the Muslim faith.
Mr. Tedo,
do you understand?
Mr. Tedo, I appreciate you as a person. Listen, I appreciate you as a person because of your ability to listen and your ability to understand things. What you're saying now, I would say it is inaccurate because Gaza is not only a Muslim territory. Do you know that 30% of Gaza are Christian?
I'm aware.
Like the territory of Palestine, the territory of Palestine. Do you know that the birthplace of Jesus Christ is in Palestine, not in Israel? Bethlehem, Nazareth, they are all bad and they are all fighting the same war. So if he went there and talk about Gaza, it's not about the faith. Maybe the vast majority of them, 70%.
What I'm saying is,
but 30% are Christians.
The same energy he used to speak in that way. Why don't they use that same energy to solve our local problems? I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
There is a difference. The point is very clear. The facts are there. There are more genocide going on in Nigeria compared to whatever it is that happened in Gaza. What has the UN done about it? What has the UN done about it? Are we not human beings? Or the life in Gaza is in Africa?
Listen, we are the one that will raise the alarm that our people are being killed in Nigeria. And when we raise the alarm, the United Nations will hear. United Nations is not everywhere.
No, it's over the alarm.
Gaza. It's the fact that the people of Gaza are saying it out loud in media spaces, and they have Al Jazeera that is
saying about gentlemen.
Side against Christians in Nigeria. They have been tweeting against it, and now it's attracted the UK, the American attention, particularly American senators. It has attracted their attention. Now they are beginning to talk about it in the floor of the Senate. And what will the people say? They say it's an agenda, right? So our lives do not matter. Christians' life in Nigeria do not matter. It's about agenda.
For the first time, I want to say this as well. For the first time, right? When a lot of these genocides were going on,
every life should be sacred. Every life. But once the reason why people will look at it as an agenda is when the truth has been distorted. When you see one side of the truth and not the other, completely distort the facts. That's when people will say there is an agenda.
People have been killed, for instance. You also cry for your people that have been killed. It's simple as that. Nobody stopped Muslims from complaining about the Muslims that are killed. Why are they silent? Why?
No.
Why are they silent?
No. But I assume, Mr. Due Process, you are the reason why we are calling you with this nickname, Due Process, is because you are the co-founder of Due Process Integrity Vanguard. But why are you championing here on national television the division of Nigerians that the Muslims should be calling for the interests of the Muslims and the Christians should be calling for the interests of the Christians? That's against what you stand for.
Wait. Christians are being massacred in Nigeria for what they stand for. Just 2 days back, a reverend has been slaughtered, right, by Boko Haram. Who has been arrested? Nobody. It's not one, it's not two. Of course, Mr. Nelson is here from the Catholic angle, he can understand better. over many Reverend Fathers have been slaughtered in terror by terrorists, right? Who have been arrested? At the end of the day, when the terrorists are caught, they are released that they have repented. What are we talking about? This is a state-sponsored terrorism. Let's not hide it. So it's just a fact. So if I am complaining, if Christians are complaining, for instance, about Christians being massacred in Nigeria, okay, there are also Muslim casualties. No doubt about it, is the fact. But
and it's
then,
even more. But the part that they are not saying is that the Muslim casualties is more than the Christian casualties. And when you try to pretend that it is only Christians that have been killed,
they should also voice out and complain.
The premise
They
of
should
your
not just
arguments.
be post complaining about Christian massacre. They should also complain about Muslim massacre. That's the point. These are not just number. These are human lives. Every day in Nigeria, over 43 Christians are being massacred. Statistically. So
yeah, you talk about listen. The other thing when I was responding, you talk about the
Christians that have been massacred.
killing of Christians.
I expect everybody to get involved. It should be everybody because this is about Nigeria. It's about the peace and tranquility of this country we're talking about. Without peace, there can be no development. Directly or indirectly, we're all victims. So if Christians have been massacred, let Muslims also start complaining that Muslims are also being massacred. At the end of the day, the buck stopped on the president's table. And that's where we are calling out the president. He's not performing. There is no government in Nigeria as it is now. All we have is people parading as leaders. There is no leadership without government.
Mr. Due Process, I would also want to say this thing, all right? You know, one of the biggest challenges we have in Nigeria for the past two administrations, Buhari was an abysmal failure to Nigerians. Sorry to say this on national TV. All right?
He is,
because
sorry about it.
He supported outrightly terrorism. There was no day Buhari came on TV to condemn his brothers killing Nigerians. The only thing he would come out to say was that Benue, because Benue suffered a bulk of the attack, Benue Plateau, in the course of Buhari's administration, he would say that our people should learn how to accommodate foreigners. I grew up with Fulani men in my village. We ate their nunu, we drank their nunu, we ate their fura, we gave them yam. There was no day that a Fulani man raped a Benue indigenous. There was no day. I grew up as a boy with Fulani people. Do you understand? So whenever we're talking about this, people say, no, I grew up with Fulani, so I am not saying what I don't know. Whenever a Fulani cow eats any of our farms, they came begging and paying whatever charge was laid against them. But that's not the case. And you know, when we fail as a people to acknowledge the challenge we have, then see, Tinubu outrightly says there's no corruption in Nigeria. He would say we don't have insecurity problems. Did you listen to his what is it called? Did you listen to his Independence Day broadcast? Was that from a president of a country at the verge of collapse? Was that from a president in a country where Nigeria, almost over 500 Nigerians are killed every day? Look at what happened in Kwara a few days ago. The man we call our president didn't even come to acknowledge that his people are killed. Do you understand? So when we are talking about this thing being religiously motivated, one will be wondering why. But for the fact that we have two Muslims at the helm of affairs who don't want to acknowledge that Nigeria is at war. Even when Nigeria was fighting civil war, there were no casualties as much as what we're having in Nigeria today. And we are saying Nigeria is at peace. And to say this thing, I'm from Twande in Benue State, right? Last week, the people who were posted to secure the people in Twande that have been killed by Fulanis, the army opened up fire on citizens, indigents of a village. There was no reason, there was no fight, nothing. Why? Later facts were checked and they were paid. There were Fulanis among them paid to kill the people because the Fulani militias a few weeks ago came for an attack and the locals were able to arm themselves and fight them back. That is the country we are living in. So the truth of the matter is, if we are looking at development in Nigeria, all right, let us draw cutting on the lines of religion, all right? Until we are able to close our eyes from religion, Nigeria as a nation will go nowhere. Can we talk about political appointments? Can we talk about federal ministries and people who are in the hands of authority? Do you have a right to talk as a Christian there? No. Am I saying is it everybody who does that? No. I have met very amazing Muslim directors in federal parastatals. I can even call one of them, Dr. Tambo Ahmed, is somebody, one of the directors of NIDA, that we work together. That's one of the most amazing person I've met in my life working with him. He's a Muslim, but he doesn't discriminate. Why? He's educated. Do you understand? So one of the things I always love to see as a people in Nigeria is the further we want to deny obvious facts, the more we plunge into confusion as a people. Do you understand? Because if we don't see, the truth of the matter is what we call insecurity in Nigeria. If the Northern elders wanted to end today, it will end. That's the truth. They know who are the sponsors. The Nigerian government know who are the sponsors of this thing. But it is not affecting them. Their kids are in the UK, in Dubai, in the US. They don't give a damn. We are more or less like Ibrahim would say, we are like the pawn on the chessboard of these power brokers. They don't give a damn. So I think the conversations around, do we have Sharia? We want to have Sharia. The question should be this. Do we want Nigeria to grow? If yes, then let us stop further polarizing the little piece we already have by talking about it, bringing something that is controversial. Am I saying Sharia is wrong? No. It's just like I'm saying, I'll come up to say publicly that somebody obeying the Christian rules and regulations is wrong. I can't actually say that because as an educated person, I know everybody has the right to religion and belief. So if one thing is working for a religion, I am to clap for them and say, if this thing works for you, go ahead and practice it. But your practices should not affect the peace and stability of a secular nation like Nigeria. Those are the conversations we should have. There are sometimes I go and watch the Senate plenary meetings, and I see what some of the Northern senators come to propose in the Senate House, and I'm wondering, do these guys have brains? Do they think? Because if they think, those things are not questions to be debated about in the Senate House of a secular state. Nigeria is not an Islamic nation. Nigeria is a secular state. So talking about imposing and bringing certain things of the Islam faith into the constitution is you saying everybody who is a Christian or a traditional ruler should go to the Senate House and propose that their faith should be included in the constitution. One of the things we don't know is we are doing this thing today thinking it's going to favor us. We will die and our children will come up and live in the disaster we created. And Nigeria today, Buhari was the president that harbored impunity, that practiced impunity to the highest of it. Is he alive? No, he's dead. But Nigeria will live to face the misrule of Buhari for 8 years, whether you are a Muslim or you are a Christian. The Fulani crisis we are having today and bandits, who brought them? We know who brought them. Just that we don't talk about it, right? We know who and who to point to terrorism in Nigeria. Do we acknowledge it? No. Is everybody suffering? Yes. It's just a question of time. All right? If you're not a victim today, you're a benefactor of the field.
Hello, am I the one who is caught up? All right, let me come in.
All right, but as long as we keep harboring these things, we are not going anywhere as a nation. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for that awesome submission.
Thank you,
Mr. Briefly, please.
Yeah. I think we come to a common ground. We come to an agreement. The agreement here is that unless we unmask that emotion from us, that is distorting our eyes from seeing what is good for the general good of Nigerians, we're not going to move forward. And we can achieve that only through acceptance, accepting our individual differences. I know for a fact that a lot of, for example, Mr. Ako Christian Noche talk about Plateau State and Benue State that are suffering from attacks, which Plateau State and Kaduna State, I'm sorry, that are suffering from attacks. And in these states, in Plateau State, for example, Christian has the larger population. There has never been a time in a democratic setting that there has been a governor in Plateau State that is Muslim. There has never been a time that the deputy governor in Plateau State is a Muslim. There has never been a time in Plateau State that the Speaker, House of Assembly is a Muslim. Why are the people of Plateau State afraid of Sharia while the lawmakers are all Christians? And the vast majority of people here, the Muslims are just a minority. And as I said, Sharia is just what the politicians use to deviate or to make the people stop focusing on the reality on ground and to be focusing on futile things that does not even matter. But before I land, I would like you to tell us the data that I asked you to check. I want you to tell us for the sake of our audience.
I did not. What did you say?
I said check the data
I think we should continue next time because we have taken 1 hour, 30 minutes and still counting. So maybe.
Yeah, I thought you check it because I asked you to check and tell Mr. Ako Christian Oche that he is wrong for inferring what he inferred and for our audience to see.
Yes,
I think that's what
there is nothing
whether the Sharia.
Nigeria is a secular state. We don't need Sharia to be peaceful.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. I reiterated that if people are going to rewind back the argument, I said, do I believe that Nigeria should adhere to Sharia? No, I don't believe.
Ibrahim,
Nigeria is a secular state.
I would like to thank you for watching the contribution and time. Tedro Nelson, Ibrahim Mawase, and Ako Christian Uche. Thank you very much. We have had a good and insightful conversations. This debate still continues. It never ends until we'll get deeper and insightful aspects of them. But all I would like to say is that there are two schools of thought. The first school believes that there is an element of extremism in Islam, and this is what we have to reject, or we should reject. But the second school believes that the very essence of the Sharia is extremism itself. Therefore, that is why the Christian community has been rejecting it. But the fact still remains that the buck, as Christians have said, the buck stops on the president's desk or the leader's desk. They are the ones to steer the wheel. If they want Nigeria to be united, it resides with them. But we'll have to continue the conversation next time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, viewers, for your time. We would like you to make your conversations. Make your contributions and comments in the comment section. We'd like to know your thoughts on this. Is the Sharia a threat to peace or a pathway to conflict? I'm Coach Raphael. See you next time for another episode. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Alko Christian Oche.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim.
Have a great day.
Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Thank you.